Eudaimanya, systems and frameworks to improve habits, mind, and life.
Welcome to Eudaimanya, Attached.
Glad to be here for this one.
So picture this. You're staring at your phone.
Oh, we've all been there.
Right. You've just typed out this really vulnerable text to your partner. Maybe, I don't know, just asking for a little reassurance because they've been kind of distant all week.
Yeah.
But you don't hit send. You actually just delete the whole thing.
Ouch.
Because you tell yourself, I shouldn't be so needy. So you spend months or maybe even years just trying to need your partner less.
Just holding it all in.
Exactly. You hold back, you suppress that desire for closeness, and you try to build this fortress of total emotional self-sufficiency.
Because that's what we're told to do.
Yeah, you become convinced that your fundamental need for connection is actually a weakness, like a character flaw that you just have to fix. But here's the crazy part, and this is what really drove me to look into this deep dive. The harder you try to need your partner less, the worse the relationship actually gets.
It's so true.
And you're just left exhausted, wondering, why is this failing?
Well, it's a incredibly painful and honestly a super common cycle. And it happens because you're treating a fundamental biological necessity as if it were some kind of psychological defect.
Which brings us right to the core of our deep dive today. We are exploring Amir Levine and Rachel Heller's fascinating book, Attached.
Such a paradigm-shifting book.
It really is. They argued that everything society has taught us about independence and relationships is just fundamentally backward.
Utterly backward, yeah.
But before we get into the architecture of how their system actually works, I feel like we really have to unpack this cultural myth first.
Yeah.
Because the messaging is everywhere, right?
Oh, it's inescapable.
Society is constantly feeding us this idea that emotional self-reliance is the absolute peak of mental health.
Completely. I mean, think about all the self-help advice we constantly hear.
Yeah.
We're told to, find our center, never rely on anyone else for your happiness, be entirely self-contained. And if you dare to actually lean heavily on a partner, you are instantly slapped with the label of being codependent.
Oh, codependent, the ultimate buzzword.
Right. It creates this immense, almost suffocating pressure to be an emotional island.
But in Attached, Levine and Heller completely rupture that idea. They argue that dependence isn't a lifestyle choice. And it definitely isn't a sign of immaturity. It's an inescapable biological fact.
Which is a huge relief to hear, honestly.
Totally. And they back this up with a piece of evidence that I just found mind-blowing. They reference this fMRI study conducted by Dr. James Cohen.
Oh, the hand-holding study.
Yes. So he took married women, put them in a brain scanner, and told them they were about to receive a mild electric shock.
This is terrifying.
Right. And when the women were in the scanner completely alone, their hypothalamus, which is the stress and panic center of the brain, it just lit up like a Christmas tree.
Which makes sense. They're about to be shocked.
Exactly. But when their husbands were allowed in the room to just hold their hands, the stress activation dropped to almost zero.
It's just a profound paradigm shift.
It really is.
Because what that study proves is something the authors call the dependency paradox.
The dependency paradox. Okay, break that down for us.
So this is basically the central thesis of the book. You do not become stronger by isolating yourself.
Right.
You actually become bolder, more independent, and more resilient in the real world. Precisely because you have a secure base to rely on.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on that just a little bit.
Go for it.
I get the fMRI study, holding hands lowers stress, sure. But if I completely attach my physiological regulation to another human being, doesn't that just make me incredibly fragile?
How so?
Well, if they leave or if they're just emotionally unavailable one day, my whole system collapses. How is tying my stability to someone else's behavior a form of resilience?
See, that is exactly the cultural fear speaking right there.
Really?
Yeah, but it misunderstands how the biology actually works. The resilience doesn't come from clinging to them. It comes from the knowledge that the support is there if you need it.
Oh, interesting.
Let's look at how Levine and Heller illustrate this with a real-world example. They talk about a reality TV competition.
Oh, right, Karen and Tim.
Exactly. So there's this couple, Karen and Tim, and during a highly stressful physical challenge, Karen was panicking.
Understandable on those shows.
Right. And she kept asking Tim to just hold her hand to help her calm down, just like the fMRI study.
Yeah.
But later on, she actually apologized on national television.
Wow.
She said she was deeply embarrassed by how, quote-unquote, needy she was acting, and that she should have been able to self-soothe.
Which is so tragic to watch. I mean, she was actively fighting her own biology. Her brain was screaming for physiological regulation through her partner, just like the women in the scanner. And she felt profound shame for it because of this cultural myth.
Precisely. And because Tim bought into the exact same myth, he ignored her biological wiring too.
Right, he wouldn't do it.
No, he refused to be that secure base. But it completely backfired on him later on.
Oh, during the bridge jumping challenge.
Yes. Later in the show, they faced this bridge jump. Tim was absolutely terrified, but he was trying so hard to be the strong, independent guy.
Right, the classic tough guy routine.
Exactly. So he refused to look at Karen, refused to let her comfort him, and his system just went into total overload.
He froze.
He completely froze. Because he wouldn't lean on her, they literally lost the entire competition.
Wow. Okay, that perfectly answers my doubt. By refusing to accept that they were this interdependent unit, he actually hindered his own ability to perform.
Exactly.
So, if we accept that this biological dependency is real, how does it actually function in our day-to-day lives? Because Levine and Heller lay out a whole architecture for this, grounded in adult attachment theory.
They do. It's very systematic.
Yeah. And I found it really helpful to think of the human brain's attachment system like a biological security thermostat.
Oh, that is a great way to visualize it.
Right. Just as a thermostat, monitors the temperature in a room and kicks on the heat when it gets too cold, your attachment system is constantly, like subconsciously, monitoring your proximity to your partner.
Always running in the background.
Exactly. If the emotional distance gets too vast, the thermostat registers a threat to your survival and it kicks on.
Right.
And here is where the authors categorize how different brains are wired to react when that room gets cold.
The 3 styles.
Yes, the 3 relational DNA types. First, you have the secure style.
The lucky ones.
Yeah, these are people who are naturally comfortable with intimacy. They don't panic when things get close, and they don't panic when there's a little distance.
Very steady.
Then you have the anxious style. These individuals deeply crave intimacy, but their thermostat is just incredibly sensitive.
Right, hair trigger.
Exactly. They are hypervigilant to any perceived threat to the relationship. And finally, the avoidant style.
Which is the trickiest one, I think.
Totally. These people actively equate intimacy with a loss of their personal independence. So when someone gets too close, their thermostat actually reads that as the threat, and they try to minimize the closeness.
And what's crucial for listeners to understand is that none of these are conscious choices.
Right, it's biological.
Exactly. But when 2 different styles collide, say an anxious and an avoidant, it creates this really toxic feedback loop that the book calls the anxious-avoidant trap.
Let's dig into the mechanics of that trap, because this is where the book moves from theory to explaining like almost every bad date I've ever heard about.
Oh, absolutely.
When the thermostat detects a threat, these styles use completely different internal mechanisms. For example, anxious individuals use what Levine and Heller call activation strategies.
Right, the overthinking.
Yes, the obsessive thinking. It's idealizing the partner, stalking their social media, calling them 5 times in a row.
We've all seen it.
It's basically the brain doing whatever it takes to force proximity and reestablish the connection.
And of course, avoidants use the exact opposite mechanism. They use deactivation strategy.
Deactivation, right.
When an avoidant feels someone getting too close, their system tells them their autonomy is dying.
Wow.
So they suddenly focus on their partner's tiny flaws, like, I don't know, how they chew their food.
Oh my gosh, yes, the nitpicking.
Exactly. Or they pull away, or they keep secrets, basically doing anything to suppress the intimacy and turn the thermostat off.
But if you pair an insecure style with a secure style, something entirely different happens. The authors describe the secure bumper effect.
I love this concept.
It's so cool. A secure partner acts like a physiological shock absorber.
Yeah.
They don't get defensive when their partner needs reassurance. They are actually capable of taking on an insecure partner's anxiety, regulating it, and elevating the whole relationship to a stable baseline.
And that bumper effect works because of a concept the science refers to as shared physiological regulation.
Shared regulation.
Yes. When you bond with someone, you are no longer 2 distinct entities walking around. You literally become a single physiological unit.
That is wild to think about.
It is. You are quite literally regulating each other's blood pressure, heart rate, and hormonal levels.
Oh, wow.
So the book argues that a healthy relationship requires actively managing this shared base, what they call secure base management.
Right, the 4 pillars, basically.
Exactly. You have to provide accessibility, give non-interference, and offer active encouragement. If you ignore those pillars, this biological unit misfires. You get stressed, your immune system dips, and the relationship breaks down.
Which makes me wonder, if our biology is screaming at us to find stability, why do so many of us actively chase the exact opposite?
Yeah, the million-dollar question.
I mean, why do we so often confuse anxiety and drama with passion? Because we've all seen someone ignore a perfectly nice, stable partner to chase someone who just treats them like an afterthought.
Yeah, it's one of the most tragic cognitive errors the book explores.
Cognitive error.
Yeah, because from a neurochemical standpoint, an activated attachment system, which remember is a state of biological panic, triggers the exact same physiological responses as intense, passionate love.
Wait, really? The exact same?
The exact same. Your heart races, your palms sweat. You literally cannot stop thinking about the person.
Okay. Levine and Heller call this the roller coaster effect.
Yes.
So imagine you're dating someone who gives you constant mixed signals. One day, they are all over you, making you feel like the center of the universe.
Right.
The next day, they take 48 hours to respond to a simple text.
Brutal.
So when they pull away, your anxious thermostat cranks up, and you plunge into this deep, agonizing anxiety.
Your system is panicking.
Exactly. But then they finally throw you a tiny crumb of affection.
Boom, boom.
Your system floods with relief, causing this massive euphoric high.
Exactly. But the cognitive error is that you interpret that high as love.
Oh, wow.
But it isn't love. It's just the temporary cessation of pain.
That is incredibly dark.
It is. You were drowning, they handed you a straw, and you thought, wow, this person is my soulmate.
Jeez.
And the practical consequence is devastating. People stay in highly unstable, toxic loops for years because they confuse their broken, sparking security thermostat with true passion.
And a stable partner doesn't cause that.
Right. A stable, secure partner doesn't trigger that panic, so ironically, they feel quote-unquote boring by comparison.
That makes total sense, as sad as it is. But it still leaves a huge question about the person on the other side of that dynamic.
Okay.
So say you're in a relationship and things are actually going perfectly. There's no drama, there's genuine connection. Why would someone suddenly pull away right when the relationship is finally hitting its stride?
That is driven by a mechanism the book identifies as the avoidant proximity paradox.
The avoidant proximity paradox. Let's look at how the authors illustrate this with the story of a couple, Greg and Tamara.
Oh, this is such a classic example.
Right. So Greg is treating Tamara beautifully. They're taking trips, they're having deep conversations, they are building real trust.
Everything looks great.
But the very moment Tamara starts to genuinely rely on him, like when she really drops her guard, Greg suddenly does a total 180.
Just flips a switch.
He claims he's, quote, just so swamped with work, and suggests they only see each other on weekends.
Which to the outside world, and certainly to Tamara, is completely baffling. It feels like pure self-sabotage.
Right, like why ruin a good thing?
But internally, Greg's deactivation strategies have just been triggered. The irony of the proximity paradox is that it's not conflict that scares the avoidant partner.
It's the closeness.
Yes, it's the closeness. The closer she gets, the more his biological system perceives an existential threat to his independence.
And the consequence of that paradox is just heartbreaking. It means the partner who commits the most, who is the most vulnerable and loving, actually receives the coldest treatment.
Exactly.
It reinforces the avoidant's perceived autonomy, but it completely destroys the bond.
And this inevitably leads to conflict. But the book points out something fascinating about how this conflict manifests in day-to-day life. Have you ever noticed how couples will have a screaming match over something incredibly trivial, like, I don't know, who is supposed to unload the dishwasher?
Oh, all the time. I mean, you see a couple give each other the hostile silent treatment for like 3 days over an unanswered text or a misplaced set of keys.
Right.
It looks incredibly petty from the outside.
It really does.
Yeah.
But Levine and Heller argue that the underlying mechanism here is protest behavior.
Protest behavior.
Yeah, these couples are arguing endlessly over logistics without realizing that they aren't actually fighting about the dishwasher at all.
So what are they fighting about?
The real hidden question being asked by the anxious partner is, can I count on you? Are you there for me?
Wow. And what's brilliant and also terrible about this trap is why it stays unresolved.
How do you mean?
Well, the avoidant partner actually benefits from keeping the fight about the dishwasher.
Oh, right.
Because if they admit the fight is about emotional security and they actually resolve it, it would result in intimacy.
And intimacy is the threat.
Exactly. As we just discussed, intimacy is what triggers their threat response. So they keep fighting about the chores to maintain the emotional distance. It's this perfect closed loop of dysfunction.
It really is. Which brings up a really tough reality.
What's that?
Well, if this dynamic is so painful and so predictably awful, why don't we see it coming? I mean, why do we ignore early, glaringly clear signs that someone cannot commit?
The book calls this ignoring the smoking gun.
The smoking gun.
Let's go back to Greg and Tamara for a second. Levine and Heller point out that early on, in like the very first few dates, Greg explicitly told Tamara, I always get bored of my girlfriends eventually. I just need a massive amount of space.
I mean, that is a textbook smoking gun right there.
Right.
It is a blatant, self-reported statement of an avoidant attachment style. He is literally handing her the blueprint of how he is going to hurt her.
But Tamara ignores it because she's viewing it through her own activation strategies. She thinks, oh, he just hasn't met the right woman yet.
Oh, the classic trap.
His exes were probably just too demanding. I will be the exception. She actually thinks her love can override his relational DNA.
And it never works.
No, and the practical consequence is tragic. She spends years of emotional cost crying, fighting, going to therapy, just trying to uncover information about his inability to commit that was freely offered to her on day one.
That is so tough.
Okay.
And this is where we really have to step back and look at the limits of Levine and Heller's system.
Okay, let's look at the limits.
Because as illuminating as this framework is, it is not magic.
Isn't
It has firm boundaries, and there are places where it entirely collapses.
I was actually wondering about that, because if someone is deeply avoidant, can a secure partner really just bumper affect them into being healthy indefinitely? Like, where does this framework actually break?
It breaks when there is an absolute refusal to adapt. The system requires some level of self-awareness. If someone is rigidly avoidant and absolutely refuses to acknowledge that their deactivation strategies are a defense mechanism, like if they truly believe their partner is just too needy, no amount of secure base management is going to fix it.
That makes sense.
You can't out-communicate someone who views your communication as a literal threat.
And the book goes into some darker territory with this too, right? It's not always just a partner politely saying they need space.
No, unfortunately, it can get much worse. The authors describe a dynamic called the hostile intimate circle.
Hostile intimate circle.
Yeah. This is a severe state where an avoidant individual begins to treat their partner demonstrably worse than complete strangers.
Wow.
It's baffling to experience, but from an attachment perspective, it actually makes dark sense.
Because they're too close.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the partner has gotten past the outer defenses, they are viewed as a direct internal threat to the avoidant's survival. So the behavior moves from mere distancing to active, biting hostility.
So it is terrifying.
It is. The framework can diagnose this dynamic perfectly, but it cannot cure it if it's deeply entrenched. In those cases, the book argues the only secure choice is to just leave.
That is heavy. But it makes perfect sense if their brain is literally misinterpreting love as an existential threat.
Right.
And looking at all of this, it really forces a reevaluation of that codependency myth we started with.
It really does.
Because there are massive self-help movements out there built entirely on the premise of total individuation.
Oh, absolutely.
They preach strict boundaries, total emotional self-reliance, and basically view any form of dependency as a pathology.
Exactly. And Levine and Heller are very careful here. They acknowledge that those individuation tools are fantastic and totally necessary if you were dealing with, say, substance addiction or severe abuse.
Sure, that makes sense.
But they argue that applying addiction recovery principles to general romance is a complete disaster. Expecting total emotional self-sufficiency in love goes entirely against human evolution.
So it's almost like, imagine going up to a scuba diver who is 80 feet underwater. Okay.
And telling them they need to take off their oxygen tank to prove they aren't needy.
Oh, wow, that's a brilliant way to look at it.
Right. It sounds ridiculous when you frame it like that. You wouldn't tell them to just find their center and breathe water.
No, you die.
Exactly. They are in an environment where they biologically require that oxygen tank to survive. And in a relationship, your partner is that oxygen tank. They are your biological regulator.
I love that.
Pretending you don't need them doesn't make you a stronger diver. It just means you're going to drown.
That is a perfect analogy. Biological interdependence is inescapable. You really just can't life hack your way out of millions of years of evolution.
You really can't. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? I think the greatest takeaway from Attached is a complete reframing of how you view your own needs.
Depending on someone isn't a weakness. It is the very foundation of your personal strength. If you've been holding back or playing games or feeling deeply ashamed because you just want to text back, recognize that your thermostat is just asking for its baseline security.
It's doing its job.
Exactly. It's working exactly as it was designed to.
Yeah.
Find someone who acts as a secure bumper, someone who doesn't view your biological needs as a burden, and just watch how much braver and more independent you become in every other area of your life.
And I want to leave you with a final, honestly somewhat haunting question to ponder on your own.
Let's hear it.
If a massive portion of what we casually brush off as we just weren't right for each other is actually a fundamental incompatibility of biological attachment systems that revealed themselves in the very first signals, how much of the suffering you've experienced in relationships was just time spent ignoring information you already had.
Wow, let that sink in. You don't have to fight your biology anymore. Stop treating your need for connection like a broken bone that just needs to be reset.
It's not a flaw.
No, it's not a character flaw. It's human. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Wishing you a thoughtful journey ahead.
If this video was useful, give it a like, subscribe, and share. More systems and frameworks in the next Eudaimanya video.